And the first recipient of the Just You Award goes to Wendy Gunn. Her webpage is yourhomeforgod.com. I was in an email class with Wendy. Unfortunately, I had to leave early, but it was so hard for me to leave. And the reason was, I felt as though she was just talking to me. See, during COVID, a lot of people ended up feeling very alone. And when everyone went to Zoom or to podcasts, they felt they were including everyone by saying everyone and you guys. But what they didn't realize is 40% of their audience falls under the category of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, which causes them, me, I, to process things differently. What happened when the trainer would say you guys and everybody, I would feel more isolated. And I thought it was just me, but then I realized there were a lot of people feeling this way. So I am on a mission to give awards to those of you who make a conscious choice, intentionally speak to one person and say you rather than you guys, who say welcome rather than welcome everybody. Because in radio, that's the first thing I learned. Talk to one person so they feel seen and heard. It's the first step in marketing. Niche down, get an avatar. Because when you talk to everyone, you talk to no one. So congratulations, Wendy, on the Just You Award. If you have been thinking or saying, I want to do a podcast, but then immediately you think, I'm not techie. I hate my voice. Who would listen? What would I say? If you are a woman over 40, you have things to say. And with my course, the Podpreneur Blueprint, you can get a podcast up and running within a week if you'd like. If you're not techie, don't worry. I give you options of how to find someone that can help you. We are not islands. We don't do this alone. If not now, when? Because on New Year's, when you make that new resolution, this year, I'm going to think about this. You could be saying, this year I did, and I have 52 episodes. You can do this. Learn all about podcasting with the Podpreneur Blueprint System. Go to www.coachlori.com and get your flash sale today. Somebody's praying for an answer, and you have it. Will you say yes? Go to www.coachlori.com. That's LAURIE.
What I have been doing to stay ahead and to be consistent is to record those episodes ahead of time and do 3 or 4 in a row. And that way I can spend the next week or so editing those 3 or 4 in a row and loading them up and putting those posts to be scheduled out, because of course people need to know about my show. So then I need to do the post, to let them know about the show.
Has your life, your dreams been interrupted? Good news. It is possible to reinvent our lives. People are doing it every day, and some are brave enough to share the struggles, disappointments, and challenges. If you are looking for a new beginning, a do-over, or to rediscover your passion, maybe even find a new one, then grab a cup of coffee and let's talk. Interrupted, Act 2, Reinventing Your Legacy, with your host, Coach Lori.
Victory Lyric is with us, and her podcast is called ArieVive Studio, and she has a book coming out soon, which I can't wait to read. The title is Disappointed, You're Not Alone. Welcome.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I want to start with talking about your podcast. What brought you to decide to do a podcast?
I was a pastry chef and I owned multiple bakeries and a restaurant. And about 10 years ago, I was doing a whole lot of, I did some Food Network, and then I did a whole lot of morning talk show TV. And I was like celebrity chef, and I had just the best time with it. And it was natural for me. They kept inviting me back again and again. My publicist, basically, she was saying, well, they really love having you. You're a natural. And I said, what would it be like if I had my own show one day? Is that a possibility? Well, she said it definitely was, and we were going to start working toward that. Well, then divorce happened. And when divorce happened, I didn't have the footing under me to be able to go forward, to start something new right away. So it's been almost 10 years, 9 years since the divorce. I am finally having doors open. I feel like God's making a way for me to go on into the callings and dreams that He placed on my life. It's never too late.
That happens so often where we get the carpet pulled out from under us. And that's why I have this podcast called Interrupted. Then what led you to your next?
My divorce was about 9 years ago. I did start working towards some of those goals and dreams over the years in my own way, trying to answer my own prayers or my own dreams that God had placed on my life, thinking, well, I have this dream and I have this vision that the Lord showed me. So now I need to go do it and I need to make it happen. I need to make it go. The Lord did not need me to make it go. He needed me to heal. He needed me to learn some things along the way so that I would see through proper lenses to be able to then walk into those callings that He had for my life. So it took a little bit of time to become the person who was no longer judgmental, the person who had quite a love for others, and when the lenses started to change, then I had more of a heart for others. The purpose of the show was more productive, I should say. Since then, I said yes to God again. I put it away, because I kind of gave up on it. Like maybe it's just not going to happen. It was back in November when I started getting some messages from the Daily Gospel Network talking about, would you like to start a talk show? We'll teach you how. I did want to start a talk show. Please teach me how. So I took the course and I joined their network, and my show is on their network. It was really practical stuff about technology and things that overwhelmed me. That's kind of how I got started, and that's where I'm at this point.
That is so great. Now, is it a weekly show?
It is. It airs on Fridays at 5 Eastern. Then it airs on Sundays as well at 12:30. I have a YouTube channel, ArieVive Studios. Then we also have a website, and I then post it on our Instagram and Facebook.
So how many months have you been doing this now?
I aired the first shows in January. Started recording before that, getting some episodes under my belt, but aired that first show in January, and it has just been absolutely wonderful. When you walk through that first door that the Lord opens in obedience, then He opens another and another. Over the last 2 weeks, I have had podcast guests from all over the United States that I've interviewed that have come to town, hung out with me. We're collaborating on other things. I mean, just miracles. So it's been wonderful stepping out like that.
So it sounds like having this podcast and radio show has opened the doors for you to just fly with your dream.
It is absolutely true. And I will be speaking on a women's divorce support group, and there's a summit that they're doing for 27,000 women. I'll be speaking about disappointment, the topic of my book coming out, how to go from victim to victory, and just really supporting those individuals. And, God opened that door kind of out of nowhere. It's not nowhere to Him. He had it planned in His right timing. But
two things that you mentioned that I love. One is that you got some episodes ahead. What I discover when people say, oh, I want to do a podcast, is they open the mic and they put it online. I'm a big proponent of get a few backlogged in case we have a pandemic, because consistency is so important. So will you talk a little bit about how important it is to show up every week?
Oh, yes. I needed so much self-discipline, which I did learn in my bakeries, because you have to get up early in the morning to go bake. So there's some self-discipline there for sure. But I learned that along the way there. Working for yourself, I've found, it changes things. I can be a little more like, oh, I'll do that later, or oh, I'll reschedule that. When you reschedule things and put them off, now you've got a pile of edits to do. I have found the edits can take 30 minutes to 2 hours, just depending on the episode and how I need to clip and so forth. What I have been doing to stay ahead and to be consistent is to record those episodes ahead of time and do 3 or 4 in a row. And that way I can spend the next week or so editing those 3 or 4 in a row and loading them up and putting those posts to be scheduled out, because of course people need to know about my show. So then I need to do the post, to let them know about the show. So there's a lot more to it than I thought. But with scheduling those things ahead of time and planning my month, I'm finding it to be a lot smoother for my life, and I can still enjoy my life and family. It's not taking over.
I call that batching, and I think people forget about that. And I say, if you have a YouTube channel, just go change your jacket. Do one, change your jacket, do another one, change your shirt.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
It sounds like you got discipline around that. You found some sort of a habit that works so that you were really consistent.
Yes, that is true. And using my Google calendars super helpful, because I've got reminders in there. Okay, today is Monday, for instance. Mondays is when I go ahead and put out the YouTube version of the show if somebody missed it over the weekend on the network. I've got that scheduled in my calendar saying, please go and post that. And so I'll remember, because there's people who were on your show and I don't want to let those people down that I've invited to my show, because that episode is important to them. So I want to make sure that I'm always on top of it.
The people that are listening, they're expecting it. I always tell my students, if you don't post one week, then the way the algorithms work as far as podcasting is it gets pushed down in the queue. Somebody will have to then remember, oh, that show interrupted, and go look for it, because now it's not in the regular downloads if I choose to skip a week. When you have a guest on, because I think that's so important too, is if we have a guest, then we want to make sure they know where to find it, how to share it, and we are responsible to share it when we say we will.
Yes, because by doing that, I'm honoring the time that the individual spent with me. I'm honoring the gifts and talents and what God's doing in their life as well. I find it important to help promote the individual's ministry that comes onto my podcast, or their artwork, or whatever it is that I'm interviewing them about, because it's different than my calling, but it's still what God's doing on the planet. I am honored to be able to tell their stories. It's such a blessing to have that opportunity to be part of the kingdom that way, to help one another grow.
And stories are so important.
It is true. I have a 3-part show. My show is about inspiring others to be all God called and created them to be. Oftentimes when we are starting over, maybe after divorce, we're having opportunity to sort of reinvent ourselves, do something that we might not have done because our schedules didn't allow in the past. When I was busy taking care of a husband and a family and those kind of things, I was focused on that person, maybe not having the time to do some of the things that I'm doing now, and investing in myself and investing in the kingdom. It's been a little bit of a transition there, but
that's something I recognized when I went through a divorce. Is I feel like I blamed my husband for the things I wasn't doing. Now, when he's out of the picture and I'm still not doing it, then I had to take some responsibility for it.
Been there.
So I love it that you admit that. Sometimes it is easy to be caught up, but I love it that you saw an opportunity and you said yes. I've spoke with so many people that saw an opportunity and they waited. I don't know that they actually miss it. But my whole philosophy is push record, do it now, share your truth. When you look back on your first podcast to now, you've probably noticed some improvement because you're doing it.
Absolutely. An improvement in learning the technology. And I have found when I have not given myself love and compassion, and I have not honored and treasured what the gifts that are inside of me, I will procrastinate and maybe not go for that thing I'm wanting to step out in, because maybe I feel unworthy. During that time period of deciding to go ahead and do the talk show, and I'll show you my hands, but I felt like the Lord said, empty your hands of unworthy. And then you can walk into the victory because you have your hands open to receive. That feeling of unworthiness prevented me from going forward. In the past, I'm at a point where I'm like, I am valuable to the kingdom. I'm valuable to others. The things I've been through, I have compassion and kindness now for others. Others can feel heard and understood because I do understand. It's a beautiful gift to have walked through some of those things and now be able to support others. And I'm enjoying that. But in the past, I wouldn't have stepped into it because I didn't think I was enough.
How did you get from that point of flipping your palms and letting go of unworthy? Was it instant? Was it a process?
It's definitely a process. That process has been about learning self-compassion. I have been a type A person, had multiple business. My Barbies had corporations, okay? So I have been a go getter. I've been a leader, just not super kind and compassionate to myself. But divorce is a trauma. It's a trauma on me. It's a trauma on my children, my family, and those around me. That trauma, I walked through it and I was not particularly kind to myself. It was like, what is wrong with you? Let's get moving. I felt like I would talk to myself that way. You need to be okay. You need to get up. What is the problem? He was no good for you anyway. Just talking to myself that way. I've learned since to begin to talk to myself in a way of that was hard. And I'm really proud of you for growing so much. I'm really proud of you for still believing in love. So what if you went on a date and it didn't work? Like I've been really learning to be very compassionate with myself because I've walked through a whole lot and I have come out a whole lot stronger on the other side. And now, I'm putting myself out there on a podcast and writing a book. Those are big steps. It's little by little each day, giving yourself that love and compassion. It's not an excuse. It's just maybe you're tired today because you still have had some grief. That's what I'm saying to myself. And that's okay to be tired today. I'm not forcing myself through it the way I used to.
I love that. And self-talk is so important. What I've discovered through my years is we are so mean to ourselves and we say mean things. And when I started recognizing the language I was using was never a language I would use to any friend or family, and I had to begin to turn that around. And boy, that was tough. And in a way, it almost felt wrong to be kind to myself. So I love it that you talk about you had to walk through the healing to get here. Your instinct as a type A was to be like, all right, what's next? Let's go. But you granted yourself time and space to heal. That's so beautiful.
Thank you. It's been something that I've learned a lot about recently, and it seems so simple. Here it is right in front of our faces. Here it is right in the Bible. Love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. But what is the problem? The problem is the churches are not teaching us how to love ourselves. We're loving God and we're loving our neighbor. And then I'm finding myself to be completely exhausted doing that entire hamster wheel. But I haven't learned to love myself at that point. And if I don't love myself, I have nothing to pour out. I certainly can't love you. If I don't love me, I can't even see you because I'm so busy with myself. I'm trying to find love for myself, but I'm not giving it to myself. I read somewhere, and this one stuck with me. Just remember that you are the treasure that you've been looking for. I have found if I treat myself like the treasure I've been seeking, then wow, just wow, because it changes everything for me and the way I treat myself.
You know what you made me think of is not only self-talk, but in a way, we're reprogramming.
Oh, yes.
That's what it sounds like you're saying. We're having to look at some things that we had learned, maybe through our church or maybe through our home. We weren't worthy, don't toot your own horn, those type of things. And now we're having to turn it around so that we can be kind to ourselves. Isn't it funny? I love what you said. It's so simple. It's right in front of us. And yet, even though it's simple, I think for me was one of the hardest things I ever did was to be able to look in the mirror and actually look at myself and find a way to love that person.
Yes. Was there a way that you went about that?
For me, I just had to say, first I started with one thing. Okay, I'd look in the mirror, I'd say, I really like your eyes.
Oh.
And so then I would start with that. But like you say, when we come from trauma or rejection, it's very difficult. And the mean girl in us wants to just destroy. It seems like it's almost retraining her because she will be kind to everyone else. She'll be the first one to fight for a friend and then the first one to pull the carpet out from under herself. Love that you brought that up, and that allowing the process, even what you said about excuses was so good. It's not giving an excuse of, this is why I didn't do it. It's like, it's okay. You've had a hard day. And so it's compassion.
Yes, and I have found that I most certainly, like you're saying, would say, like, for instance, to my own sons, not get up and work harder. I would say, oh, you're not feeling great today? Come here. What do you need? Let me give you a hug. Can I get you something to eat? Why would I not say these things to myself? It is a reprogramming. I call it the undoing, because once I began to learn and see things through the lenses of, I have to love myself before I can love God and others well, then at that point, there's a reprogramming. There's a thought process that everything I know to this point needs to be shifted ever so slightly. So new lenses for sure.
Oh, I love that. So we're almost out of time. I want you to tell us about your podcast, what you love about it, and maybe what your favorite episode has been so far.
It's ArieVive Studios. It's ArieViveStudios.com. You can find it there too. But certainly it's a 3-part episode. The first part of the episode is that of the inspiration story, inspiration point of view. And it's our artisans are on our show, and artisans of all kinds, musicians and painters, all types of artisans. They come on and they tell the inspiration story of how they got started. And then the second piece is a type of tutorial. If it's a musician, they're going to play a brand new piece of music for us. Maybe it's not even out there. So that's a lot of fun. And then the third piece is what I like to call the you would not believe story, but it's victory point of view. I am that girl who every time something amazing happens, God shows me something new or some miracle happens in my life, I pick up the phone and I say, oh my gosh, you would not believe. And I would tell my aunt the story. Well, so years ago when I first had dreams of doing this show, I was like, you know what? I want those you would not believe stories. So people tell me amazing stories of the things that God's done in their lives, and miracles that you just cannot believe. And that's my favorite part. Definitely, if you tune into nothing else, that part is amazing. But what I love about the podcast is just so many different artisans from all over the country. They have all different stories, but yet they're stepping out into something that takes bravery. Every one of us have struggles when we first get going and stuff, and they persevere. And I love the perseverance and that bravery that I get to see in them, and that our viewers get to see, so that maybe they got a toe in the pool, but they can jump on in and go for something. That's really my heart on that.
We're talking with Victory Lyric. Her podcast is ArieVive Studio. She has a book coming out called Disappointed, You're Not Alone. What advice would you have for somebody who's thinking about doing a podcast?
Oh, my advice would be to definitely be authentic to yourself. So you see, I got like bright colors and stuff behind me. I'm telling stories like you would not believe, stories like I just mentioned. That's me. That's who I am. And so I'm being me inside of the podcast, and I'm inviting people to come in and be a part of that. And it's very energetic and fun for them. But if you're somebody who talks quietly and gently and so forth, don't try to be energetic and colorful like me. Be who you really are, because that's what is going to draw people in, your authenticity.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you love this podcast, here's a big ask. Will you share with your friends and family, subscribe, give us a review, and a 5-star rating, so that others looking to reinvent their lives will be able to get the help they're looking for? Thank you in advance.